Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Alanna Miller. I'm an assistant professor here at the Department of Communication, Languages, and Cultures, and I am also the faculty advisor for The Voice. Both of these organizations are sponsoring this event tonight. Tonight, we are lucky to be joined by some of the alumni from the Department of Communication, Languages, and Cultures, who I know are very excited to share some of their post-graduation words of wisdom with you all. I'd like to start by introducing our panel. Chanel Roper is the Director of Military Affairs and Events for the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce. She graduated in 2018. While she was here, she was the original program director at Bronco Eye Radio. Woo! Jasmine Sessoms, a 2014 graduate at Fayetteville State University, traded her beauty pageant crown for a career in fundraising and revenue management. Jasmine is an ambitious and driven former public relations strategist with PR campaign experience in both agency and in-house settings. She is currently the Assistant Director of Development at Fayetteville State University. Deshaun Stewart Johnson currently is the Assistant Director of Sports Information at Methodist University. He graduated in spring 2018. During his time here, he was the editor-in-chief of The Voice and interned at the Fayetteville Observer. Naima Williams graduated as recently as spring 2019. She has freelanced for the Fayetteville Observer and currently is the manager of RJ's Game Room here at Fayetteville State University. While she was here, she was an editor at The Voice, head of programming at Bronco TV, and a founding member of our chapter of NABJ. And I do have to say that we had a fifth panelist who could not make it tonight. We were supposed to be joined by Julia Coleman, who currently works at Foxy 99 and the publication Paraglide. But she was held up covering breaking news in Raleigh, so she can't be here this evening, unfortunately. All right. Let's have a round of applause for our panelists, please. Thank you. All right, my first question for the panel, and if we could just go down the row, and by the way, at some point I will open it up for your questions. But my first question is, I'd like for all of you to take some time and talk about how you got your first job after college.
Okay, so good afternoon. Well, good evening, everybody. So my first job after college, exactly, graduation was on Saturday, and on Tuesday I was at the Fayetteville Observer because I had an interview set up already. I ended up freelancing over the summer, and once this job came about here at RJ's, where I manage, I just kind of thankful for the opportunity, but it wasn't really what I was looking for at the time. So it was very soon after, so I felt good.
Good evening, everyone. It wasn't soon after for me, so it was kind of, honestly, it was a very stressful time because I graduated in May, and then I didn't really get my first job interview until like late July, early August, and the whole time I was honestly stressing. I was working at a restaurant at the time, and I'm like, okay, I'm only gonna work weekends and kind of like remove the safety net, because while you're making money, you're not really as motivated to do what you want to do. So I removed the safety net, and I was down to like, next week I was about to tell them, go ahead and put me full time, and then I got a interview at Methodist. I don't know if it went well I guess it did because they hired me, but it took like a week and a half, and then they called me and was like, hey, you know, if you would still like to be, yes, let's end the conversation. And yeah, since then, it's been at Methodist. It's pretty fun, pretty good, no complaints, really.
Hi, everyone. So I will say, clearly I have notes here. One of my biggest things that I can advocate for is internships. Internships are something that you don't necessarily want to do. You already have classwork. You're already bogged down with other activities as a student. You want to have some free time. But one thing I can say that I look back on and I wish that I had have done is get a great internship or get many internships. There's so many huge companies that want to hire people just like you. But for me, my story is I knew that I was interested in PR. I had a public relations internship here in Fayetteville that I was doing because I had to, my senior semester, just being honest. So I got interested in PR, I enjoyed it, and I just started reaching out to local PR companies in Greensboro, in Fayetteville, in the Raleigh-Durham area, just trying to get an interview because I knew that if someone interviewed me, they couldn't turn me down on a job. So I finally got the CEO of a company in Greensboro to respond back to me, and I was graduating in December, so this was around Thanksgiving. And he said, I'll meet you, but I don't have a job opening for you. So I said, okay, well, even just meeting you is enough for me. Maybe I'm thinking someone else will introduce me, he'll introduce me to someone else. And sure enough, he did. So that Thanksgiving break, I met with him, interviewed with him. He loved me, but he didn't have a job opening, so he referred me to someone he knew in Raleigh. So I'm from Raleigh. It was the perfect fit. I ended up working for her that January. So graduated in December and started on January 15th. So I'll advocate for getting that internship experience up front so that you have those connections and you're not cold emailing like I was trying to get someone to respond to you.
Hi everybody. So mine was probably more of a rocky start. I actually started Fayetteville State in 2006 and then just graduated, so it took me quite a few years. I completely agree with internships. I have done more internships than the average person. I have been all through Florida. I've been with Expedia, SeaWorld, Universal, Disney. I train customer service all across any place I can be. So I will tell you, internships are definitely a must, and they open so many doors. Here, working with Ray Thomas was probably the best experience that I had. He taught me a lot of real world skills that I needed for when I did go down there. My only block when I got down there is I didn't finish my degree. I had all this coursework behind me and all these internships and experience, and somebody with a degree would get a job over me, no matter if I'm more qualified than them. That piece of paper meant a lot. So after I did come back here, I finished my degree, and I was like, all right, finally, got my paper. I am going to get a job. Nobody's going to stop me. Well, life had other options for me. It actually took me a year and a half to get the job at the chamber. I went to every job fair. I had my stuff. I was ready. I got the interviews. I just didn't get the job. And then one day I ended up finding out they had a program here in North Carolina or in Fayetteville that a lot of people don't know about for college students that cannot get hired, that have degrees. And they actually pay employers to hire you. They pay for all of your training. So you can either go out and find your own job, or they find one for you. I just happened to come across the Chamber of Commerce, and they had this thing called the Military Affairs Council. I didn't know much about it, but it was very interesting. I've been a military brat my entire life. So with that, they did pay for all of my training, which was 3 months, and then they decided to extend my training with the Chamber of Commerce, and I started off as the administrative assistant. From there, they promoted me within 4 months to coordinator, and now I'm a director. So that's kind of like my little story.
So I think the idea of internships has been brought up a couple of times now. So I would love to hear just anyone on the panel talk about why internships are so important and what specifically in the internships allowed you guys to get a job sooner.
Okay, so with the internships, first of all, they give you experience, because what's going to happen when you go out there, they tell you to go ahead and get your degree, but then not only do you need your degree, you need like 5 years of experience, but you just spent 4 years in college. That's something that they don't tell you. So having that internship helps you get some of that experience, as well as network. It helps you meet a lot of people. I will tell you, with the Chamber of Commerce, our interns get to meet most of the CEOs, owners, and presidents of most of these companies out here. So having that exposure is a huge deal, because if we don't hire them, I will tell you 90% of the people that have interned with the Chamber get jobs starting off at director level. So definitely, I would push internships any chance you get, even if it's not a paid one. I mean, find whatever time that you can. I tell you right now, we use Kiana all the time when we can.
You know, I would say my whole life I decided that I wanted to be a news reporter. I wanted to be a news reporter. I wanted to be an anchor. And I came to Fayetteville State and I just knew that's what I wanted to do. Okay, I came to Fayetteville State, but then I didn't put the work in. ABC 11 WTVD is right downtown. I had a car. I could have taken myself to an internship. I could have been in the newsroom, and I could have set myself up for success with an entry-level reporter job. But when you graduate, some of those opportunities are no longer open to you. WTVD only takes college students. They don't take old people. Like, they're not interested in, if you don't have experience, if you don't have a role, if you don't have a reel, they don't want to talk to you. So if you haven't put the work in at Fayetteville State and you haven't had an internship, someone who's up against me who has this experience, I'm a nobody to them. And I'll piggyback on the networking. I mean, you can meet so many people in higher places and you never know who that person knows and what door they can open for you. So it may not be the person that you're interning with, but you could go for coffee with the boss somewhere and meet someone who gives you your next job. So it definitely just opens so many doors. And if you have an aspiration, it gives you the opportunity to see, okay, I thought I wanted to be a reporter, but I never tried. So now I don't know. Would that have been my dream job, or is what I'm doing now going to be my dream? So I would hone in on that and try different things. Maybe you do a reporting job, maybe you do PR, maybe you try sports management. I don't know. You can do whatever you want. It's just it's a trial run, basically.
That was a very good point, because for me, my internship was at the Observer, and while I liked working there, I worked there the summer before my senior year, I thought for sure that's where I wanted to work. And then when I got there, I'm like, okay, this is a cool experience, but yeah, it's not what I envisioned it to be. And it helped put me on the path of where, okay, well, what do I like doing? I like writing, but I didn't like writing fluff pieces, and I don't like investigative journalism because that's a lot of work. And I love sports, so I also interned with our athletic department here, and I was like, oh, I can combine the two, and when you combine the two, it's called sports information, and that internship put me on the path of sports information. I don't think without the Observer, I know for a fact I wouldn't be at Methodist, because when I did get to Methodist and I met some of the Fayetteville Observer writers and editors, they told me that, they called me, I put in a good word for you, I'm really glad you got this job. They had some concerns that, you weren't as experienced, and we told them look, whatever it is, he'll learn it, he's smart. So I'm really grateful to the Observer, even though I wouldn't want to work there.
So internships for me, actually, just like Jishan said, here athletic department, Bronco Sports Network was a major internship that I had. I had no idea of sports. I just like to watch for the colors, Super Bowl, I picked the team day of. So I had no idea, basketball, nothing. But I enjoyed the camera work, I enjoyed learning the setup, and I enjoyed the technology side of it, and broadcasting and what it is to create a story. It's still storytelling. It's definitely a different form of storytelling, but it was so active and so fun, so I loved it. If I ended up in sports as a career, I would not mind. I have other interests as well. Another internship, I was in JW Seabrook Auditorium. Great experience, met a lot of people, networked, learned so much about staging and lights and things that we learned in class as well, so it complemented each other, and I was doing both of those internships in one semester, so there wasn't a day that I wasn't either hanging lights here or plugging this in over here after class, day-to-day, weekends, same thing. So interning was the greatest thing I think you can do. I think it's very important. It's where you're getting more than a classroom setting if you're lucky enough to have good people to train you and to teach you and to shadow. And you're learning more than you're learning in the classroom, but you're also getting a chance to ask the questions that maybe your 50 minutes doesn't grant you. Or like, we're in classroom, and so sometimes things became easier in the classroom setting for me because of what I was learning in the internship. So, yeah, great experiences.
Thank you so much. I have a question as an introvert who doesn't like talking to people. Networking. It was something I dreaded as a student, and I know that some of our students still dread it. Do you guys have any tips for networking? Any advice you have to give?
So I moved to Washington, D.C. by myself a few years ago, and I was living there and I was working in the hospitality industry, so totally different from what I was doing at the PR agency. And I realized that in the hospitality world, you have to know people. You have to know people to get into the cool places. If you want a reservation for dinner, you have to know people. You have to know people to benefit your business, the company that I was working for. And I was scared, and I'm not an introvert, I'm an extrovert. But going to such a huge place, the nation's capital, by yourself and working this job, you know, in corporate America was kind of intimidating for me at first. But I realized, you know, your networking skills can get you in places your resume can't. And it's just that simple. So if I ever wanted to leave the job that I was working in DC, which I ultimately did and came back to Fayetteville State, however, I know now if I need a job in DC, if I want to move back, there's so many people that I met through networking. So I would just say, you know, if you're uncomfortable in situations like that, start out somewhere small. Maybe it's a small mixer, or maybe it's a small meetup for a company. Meet a friend. Once I met a buddy, I felt comfortable. I was like, hey girl, are you going to this such and such at this hotel? Yes, okay, let's meet. So if I was uncomfortable, I could stand with her, and then when I would watch her meet other people, she would then introduce me. So it's a ripple effect versus trying to go at things alone. So, you know, if you are trying to network, I would say the first time, push yourself, go. Try to meet a friend. It's really weird being an adult, honestly, because you feel like you're trying to date someone. Honestly, I would say, hey, like, are you going to this? And will you meet me there? And what time? Like, oh my God, does she think I'm like trying to put the moves on her or something? But no, you have to have a buddy system if you're uncomfortable. So I would say take a buddy.
Okay, so networking, a great example that I have, like I know people think when you hear networking, you think of the elevator pitch, you know, that you have to learn in very formal settings all the time. But sometimes the best networking happens like on the fly, or getting, you know, you're here in the same environment all day. Like if you're a student, you're here every day, so you see certain people. I got into the habit of how I got this job. I managed the game room center out here, including this space as well. Ms. Harrington, who is the manager of the building, whenever I would be over because I would be in the newsroom, she would be like moving something, and I used to just offer help because she looked like she needed help, honestly. So I used to just start talking to her that way. I used to be like, you need me to help you? Like she was just straightening up some chairs once. And one day, like around March, maybe, before I was graduating in May, I asked her about this because I did work study down here under Mr. Newton. He retired. He was the manager of the game room. And I asked her, I was like, well, is anybody gonna ever like go back down there? Are you hiring? Are you looking? And she was like, not really. And I was like, well, I would just tell you what I would do if I could manage the space. And she was like, okay, I'm gonna email you over the summer, just look out. I was like, cool. Thought she forgot. It was the 4th of July, the day after. And she had sent me an email, and I was like, oh, she was serious, because I really forgot about it, because I was like job searching. I was at the Observer, and I didn't really like it either. And I was just like working from home, answering questions like, can you get my cat out the tree? And I was like, yes, you can get your cat out the tree. Don't call the fire department. And she emailed me back, and I was like, wow, this is happening. And then it just went boom, boom, and now I'm here every night until 11. So networking. You know, sometimes it's just simple as speaking, saying hello to someone every time you see them, especially adults, they like that.
I want to point out that you are an adult.
Yeah.
Any last networking tips, or?
Yeah, I'm a socially awkward person, I've been told, and it's also true. So networking is a very hard thing for me to do. I could lie and say, yeah, I work on it, but I really don't. So what I've just been able to do is kind of just let my work speak for itself. I'm very confident in the things that I believe that I'm good at. So like even going to Methodist, like if you've never been there, Methodist is a very like how do I say it? Everybody there is alumni. They have coaches that's been working there for 30 years, assistants that's been there for 20, so everything is in-house. So for me, it was just, I know I'm not part of that family, but I know that my work is just that good that I belong there. Like, so that would help, like letting your work speak for yourself and just having confidence in your work.
Okay, for me, tips. So I will tell you, I'm not introverted, I talk a lot. Most people even if you don't talk a lot and you talk to me, you'll get in the trap and you will talk a lot. I'm just that person. It happens all the time at my job. We do get a lot of people that come in that, especially new businesses, that want to network and grow their business, but they're not good at talking to other people. So I normally sit down with those people and kind of get to know their personality. And I offer over 100 events throughout my whole year to make them comfortable to talk to people, and I'm that person. So if you don't talk to people, I usually have you follow me around and you'll talk to everybody. So I don't really have, I guess, tips, but if you do have those issues, I will tell you, I'm formally telling you that you can come see me at any time, and I will definitely help you get out of that at any time.
Excellent. I'll be in to see you. All right, one more question by me, and then I'll open it up for you guys. What skills, courses, or programs did you participate in, or I guess what skills did you develop here at FSU that helped you out in the real world?
When I was at Fayetteville State, I did a lot with Final Cut Pro and Sound Cut Pro in some of my classes, and I feel like those are skills that are really great to be able to use. I'm not using them in my current role right now, but I still know my way around those different Adobe Creative Suite products, right? Adobe Creative Suite. And also InDesign, at my PR agency, I had to create reports on like all the coverage that the company was getting. So I would have to use Adobe InDesign, and without knowing my way around it, I wouldn't have been able to create it. So those are just some of the things. I feel like I just really, not really a particular class, but I feel like at Fayetteville State, I really realized who I was. I think that the one-on-one support that I got from professors like Dr. Frobish or Professor Berry when she was here, it felt like I could go to them and ask them anything versus being in the classroom of 200 people. So I think that really helped to develop me in knowing who I was and knowing how great my work was when I was here. So just a couple of things that I feel like I took with me.
So out here at Fayetteville State, classes and courses that were beneficial to me, honestly, all of them. I was one of those kids who came to college because I was like, well, I have to make something of myself. But I had no idea because, I'm sorry, but no, I came out here because I was a chemistry major. I majored in chemistry, and I was like, no way. I was like, I'm not happy doing this, and I didn't want to do anything that would make me unhappy. So I was like, I want a job that every day I get to like enjoy what I do. So when I found communications and I made that work, it was just like smooth sailing from there out. So Bronco TV, great organization, glad I did it, learned a whole lot. It was very hands-on, very much self-taught, although under the tutelage of Dr. Frobish. But then it was like, push the birds out the nest, you guys create, do, make. The Voice, very structured. A lot of rules, and I was like, whoa, but I stayed. I liked it. Shout out to Dr. Miller, advisor. But that's the kind of structure I needed, though. Things like that were great. And then, of course, the NABJ, advised by, of course, Professor Hawkins. Just really making sure we dove into the networking of our craft and the widespread, like, how much journalism and media out here affects everybody. So I think my organizations they did a lot more for me. I enjoyed the networking more so than class. But classes were great.
For me, I would say pretty much like all the classes after like freshman year, because I don't remember my classes from freshman year. No, it's because it's really, I believe that college is really what you make it. So my freshman year, I didn't want to be here, and so I acted accordingly. And then like by the time I got to my sophomore year, I was like, well, let me see what FSU actually has to offer, and I enjoyed myself and I learned from my classes. There's not like one course in particular. For me, I'm a writer, so any course that helped develop my writing, I'm especially grateful to. And there's a lot of them, especially in the comm department. Like even the ones that you think wouldn't be writing, you still have to turn in a paper that's like 5 pages or something like that. And it's not that, for me it was never that bad because I like writing, so it was more of like a challenge for me that I enjoyed. So I'm really grateful for all the classes, of course, after freshman year.
Okay, so I'm completely opposite. I hate writing with a passion. It is not my thing at all. So I was so happy when I got into the communications department and there was an option to not have to do journalism because it's not my thing at all. I like everything else outside of that. So I am that person that has like 20 creative ideas and you have to say, Chanel, you only can choose 2, maybe. So being here, I would say a combination of all of the things that I've learned. I also started out as actually an education major. I switched my major my last semester of school, so my parents weren't too happy about that. But communications, I actually took a few courses and found out that that was the place for me. With that, I liked everything from speech to video editing, just a little bit of everything helped create me to be the person help me develop to be the person that I am today. And I would say take a piece of everything that you are learning in all of your classes, especially some of the internship opportunities that you're taking. I think a lot of students, especially when I was here, didn't take their internships serious enough to make sure that they're making lasting impressions, make sure that they're getting all of the knowledge and everything from them, because there are things I will tell you, even at Bronco Radio, I feel like I didn't learn to the best of my abilities because sometimes they'll ask me to go in the studio and do something that I don't think I paid enough attention to because I don't know how to do it. And the education that you're getting for free here, they're not going to teach you out here. So that's something that I've learned, that this is very valuable information, and a lot of these things people pay a lot of money for, especially if you know in some of the classes, I think some of you are editing like social media and things like that. Right now, I think the starting pay is about $2,000 a month just to do somebody's social media. So that is something that you definitely want to look into. And I mean, that's just like a regular small business. Starts you off at $2,000 a month. And you're barely doing stuff on your social media. So keep that in mind. Everything. Just take it all in.
All right, I want to open it up if you guys have any questions. We have a mic down here. Don't be shy.
We've talked all this time. You guys can ask something.
Don't make me call on you. I know all of your names. All right, I will continue. Do you have?
I have some adulting tips.
Adulting tips.
So in the email she said like general adulting tips, so maybe this will open up the floor for more questions. I gotta use my notes. I did this on purpose. So I said internships. One thing I will say too is study abroad. If you have a study abroad opportunity, I 100% slap myself every time I think about the fact that I did not study abroad. There is an opportunity for me to go to China for 10 days for free. Did y'all hear that? For free. And I decided that I didn't want to go because I didn't want to do a visa application because I was too busy with schoolwork and I didn't feel like doing a visa. Now it's going to cost me thousands of dollars to pay to go to China. So study abroad. If you have that opportunity, even if it costs some money, if your parents can help you, or maybe you can get a scholarship or a sponsor, ask some family members, ask some friends, help you study abroad. It doesn't have to be a semester. It could be a quick trip. I saw the nursing department advertising one, so I know Fayetteville State still does it. the short turnaround study abroad trips. When you graduate, move back home. If you have a stable home life, if you're in a good place with your parents or whoever raised you, or a cousin, an aunt, whoever, move back home. Don't let social media rush you to think that you need to move to a big city or you need to move out on your own and figure it out. Because, honey, once you move out, it's hard to move back. Or it's even more embarrassing to go back at 26, 27, 28 plus versus getting out of college 21 plus. You know, if you're fresh out of college, that gives you an opportunity to get that head start. And I'm so grateful to my parents for allowing me to come back home. I was at home for 1.5 years. I should have stayed longer, because then I decided to be grown and moved to DC, and my rent was $1,600 a month. So if you're going to make a decision like that, you know, moving back home gives you the opportunity to save some real cash while you're there. Now, don't move home and go crazy. Move home and save money. Another thing, pay back your student loans. They're not going to go away. They're really not. If you're pulling more than you need right now, I would highly suggest against it. I pulled exactly what I needed. My parents were able to help me. I know everybody's situation is different. However, people who are graduating 50, 60, 70, $100,000s of dollars in loans and then deciding they'll defer them, they're not going anywhere. And they're gaining so much interest. When you get out of college, it's insane. Mine was growing $10 a day at some point. I said, don't let social media rush you. Your connections, we talked about networking, your connections can get you into places that your resume can't. And I said that because there have been so many times that I've gone to job interviews or I've met people. There's been jobs I have not been qualified for that people said they would hire me for just because of a simple conversation over coffee or, you know, meeting somewhere out. So that takes me to LinkedIn is your digital resume. So while you're meeting people, you know, if you have an internship and you meet people and you're out and about, share those things on LinkedIn because prospective employers are checking your LinkedIn feed. So yeah, a few adulting tips.
Any other adulting tips from our panel?
I said a mouthful, I'm sorry.
No, I'll piggyback off of what she said, starting with the social media. Social media, I will tell you, one thing that a lot of college students do not take into account, jobs look at social media as soon as you apply. When I did my internship for Disney, working with them, my first week, 300 people got fired. So in their internship program, you actually are staying on their property in their apartments. When you get fired, they give you 24 hours notice to move. And mind you, people for theirs program are coming from all over the country that live in those. We have 4 different apartment complexes that you live in. So just think, something that you put on, it could be something offensive, something that you're wearing, just anything. 300 people my first week, just you got your orientation back and they're like, all right, sorry, you're going home because of something you put. And that's something that you really need to know. Just because you have it private, I guarantee you they can still see it. So that is something to think about. As far as the LinkedIn, that is very important as well. While I was working at Disney, I actually got recruited by Expedia through LinkedIn, and I actually ended up leaving Disney, even though it was an amazing job. If you want to go work there, it's an amazing company, just so you know. Expedia actually recruited me. They saw my LinkedIn page, and they offered me double the money, so of course I left, and more benefits. So that is very important that you keep that up to date. If you see somebody, I would especially have your professors on there. I would have, you know, good work experiences, good references, and just be careful who you're putting on there because that it can be a positive thing, but it also can be a negative thing. Oh yes, now this whole being grown and wanting to have a place of your own. Just like her, I will tell you, in Florida, I had a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. $1,500 before utilities. $1,500. You just think about that. Just let that sit with you. Nobody helped me with that at all. So moving out was not the best decision because all my friends were going on vacation and stuff because they were still living at home. Not me. I had the bills to pay and nobody else to pay them for me. So that's definitely something I definitely think you should do. That's it for me. Adulting tips.
You
Life
don't
is
have to
good.
have adulting tips, it's fine. I don't have adulting tips either, quite frankly. So I have another a question for the panel. What surprised you the most about the working world?
For me, what surprised me the most was, and I probably shouldn't have been surprised, but how long like 9 to 5 really is. It's not fun at all. Even with lunch, because there's been plenty of times where like my lunch was lacking or it's just I didn't have it. I'm serious. Like you're laughing, but like to work 9 to 5 like 5 days in a row and then that's 40 hours. It can get really draining really quickly, especially if you don't prepare your like mind for it, and if you're not like a morning person. For example, like I don't drink coffee, and there's been times where like when I do, I realize why people do it, and it's needed. I won't say it's needed, but it definitely helps. And I would say right now, like I guess this would be a adulting tip, but even if your class is like 11 o'clock in the morning, if you can like set a routine to wake up at 7:30, 8 o'clock and begin your day at that time, you really should, because when you get out into the real world, that's when you have to begin your day, and it's horrible.
So something that surprised me a lot in the working world was I was like, I'm lucky enough to have like complete creative control here. So like I just have to tell my boss like, hey, I have a good idea. She's like, yeah, go ahead, do it. But she's like, make sure you send that to me. I'm like, okay. And I'm like doing something and then I'm like, what happened? I thought we were gonna do this. And she was like, I need you to sit down and write an email and tell me that you want me to move this chair to here. And I was like, really? So there's a lot. Sometimes when you get these 9 to 5 and these adult jobs, there's still, depending on the person in charge, depends on the process of how they want things done. So like I sat down and I was like, I'm really making this email, like, can I have 5 chairs here? Can we move this table here? I want to make this program. I'm highlighting things. And now when I finished the email, I was like, I just screenshot it. I was like, this looks real adult. I was like, this is cool. I was like, first real adult email. And that, I guess it really, like, I was like, this is really happening. Like, you're in the world, you're working, you're an adult. And it's just like, wow, you're in the cycle now. So once you graduate, like, the moment you step, like, on the other side of that stage, it's like a button is pushed and you're just, like, on a whole new race. So, but it's a good one. It's a good feeling.
I would say the same as far as like working a real 9 to 5 is very aggressive. It's very long. I mean, when you're a student, you get to pick your schedule, you can sleep in, you have like 2 hours to go to the caf, you go to a night class, you can run errands in between. No, you have an hour lunch break most of the time. Some people have 30 minutes, and you have to figure out how you're gonna schedule your life around your job, really. You're at your job more than you're with kids or family, your husband, your significant other, and friends. So, one thing that I would say, this is kind of a roundabout answer, if you're interested in pursuing your master's degree or going further, I would go straight through. That's one of my biggest regrets, that I stopped. I got into the working world, because once you get a taste of real money, it's hard to go back to being a full-time student again. And I know people get master's degrees or PhDs while they're working full-time, but that's not me. So I would have to try to stop working now and try to pursue a master's degree. And at this point, I'm just like, why would I do it? When I'm already working, I'm getting this experience. So I would say, if you're making the decision between going to graduate school and going to the working world, look, y'all have years of life to work. If you have the opportunity to go to graduate school, I would pursue that first. Try to push it off by like 2 or 3 years, and then get into the working world. Because now there's no stop on it. You have to survive, and you have bills that you have to pay. So that's one thing I'll say is surprising. You see your parents or whoever raised you doing it, and you're like, oh, I want a job, I want to be an adult, I want to have money. And then it's like, okay, I have to ask someone, can I go to the doctor? Like, I have to ask, can I have a day off? I can't just have a personal day for me. Mm-mm.
No, it's not how it is. For me, one thing, For a lot of college students, I know getting to class on time is an issue. Time, okay? So when you're in the real world, I will tell you this. They don't care what happened. I mean, you could have had 4 flat tires, could have gave birth, they don't care. I have worked at, I will tell you some of the bigger ones, so Disney, SeaWorld, and Universal, they all work on a point system. If you are anywhere from 1 minute to 2 hours late, you get a point. 3 points and you are fired. Nothing, like there is nothing you can do about it. They are very strict. So for me, being on time is something that they kind of like drilled into me because I didn't do my jobs when I worked there. So that is something, if I would tell you, if you're gonna be late, get it out of your system now. Because you don't want to be that person that messes up a good opportunity, because there are a lot of bosses that don't care. On the flip side, the 9 to 5 thing. So my job, they entice me with, oh, you can make your own schedule. So I will tell you, that means that you are working all the time. So yes, I mean, they said, oh, well, when do you feel like being in the office? I was like, oh, easy. Like 9 to 3 is good to me. Come in there, got some of the morning, some of the afternoon. I'll break for lunch for an hour. Half my day is gone after that. Like, I'm good. But then they'll give you 20 tasks to do. As long as you get them done in that time period, you're good. I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, it's not happening. I was in the office yesterday from 7 a.m. to midnight trying to get tasks done. But that's just the nature of my job. But in return, I have tomorrow off just because I got all my stuff done. But that is something to keep in mind when you are talking to some of these jobs, when they are asking you about hours. And keep in mind, like some people like the 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, but then that also means all your doctor's appointments have to be scheduled strategically on your lunch break, because a lot of times they're not understanding about that. And having some of them do split days off, that's tough. So I mean, just keep in mind those things when you are going out there and you are looking for jobs. I can tell you right now, I meet with a lot of these owners that are desperate. Just like you guys are desperate for, well, I'm not gonna say you're desperate, but just like you're looking for jobs, there's a lot of companies that I work with to help find people to hire. But here in Fayetteville, they feel that a lot of people, they don't possess the skills as far as being on time, being lazy, not having the work ethic and things like that, as far as, and then they're going to other places to look outside of Fayetteville to give people these jobs. They are more than willing to give director positions to a lot of the college students. And I will let you know I am biased to FSU because I did graduate from here, so I always talk about FSU students. But you have to put in the work. You have to show them that you're worth it. They're willing to pay the money. You just have to meet them halfway. So, I mean, definitely put your best foot forward out there.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you. So LinkedIn has come up as well. Well, I'd love for you guys to talk about the aspect of marketing yourself to employers. So I know we've talked about LinkedIn, but I would love any advice you have on LinkedIn, cover letter advice, resume advice.
Sales, I mean, you just have to learn to sell yourself. What happens, I think, in a lot of resumes, people sell themselves short. You have to get creative with the way that you present yourself on a resume. I can't think of like something off the top of my head, but I know when I did my original resume, I just put, the words per minute, and I'm a good listener, I'm congenial, things like that. But you have to come up with different words. I'm trying to think what they told me. Like, you say something, you know what I mean? Like, in your past, when they'll say like, past work experience, you don't say janitor, you say, you make it sound fancy, just make it sound better than it is. That's what they're looking for, to be honest with you. And if nobody's told you, your resume should take no more than 7 minutes to see. They've changed the standard. So if your resume takes longer than 7 minutes to read just by looking at it, I can guarantee you the employers are not looking at it. And if you're going online and applying, they actually have a system that it generates through, and if it doesn't have certain keywords, they're not looking at you. You won't be considered for the job.
Yeah, I will say keywords. So when you're applying to things, make sure you're reading what you're applying to, and make sure it's something that you feel like you're actually interested in, or you did an internship in, something that you can add into your resume, like she's saying. So if it said, someone who's social media savvy. I am. I don't lie on your resume, because then when you get to the job interview, they're going to ask you and you're going to have to lie. So it's going to be horrible. But if you have done an internship with someone who does social media, you can craft your resume around the items in the job description so that keyword search will stick out. But as far as LinkedIn, connect with people. If you are interested in a job at, I'm just going to say Google, that's like the hugest company ever. But if you're interested in a job somewhere, and let's just say Fayetteville State, because Google's too big, I'm sorry. If you're interested in Fayetteville State and you see my profile after today, everyone in this room should connect with me. You know what I mean? Because you heard my name, you can ask for my card, and then you get my LinkedIn connect. And if something becomes available at Fayetteville State, even if it's not in my department, development or institutional advancement, there may be someone that I know at Fayetteville State who can get you into the door for an interview. So anytime you come to anything, a professor, look at your professor's LinkedIn contacts. They may know someone in the industry. All of your professors should be utilized as a resource. They may know people at ESPN, or they may know people at Google. You never know who someone knows. So that's one thing I will say about LinkedIn. I connect with people aggressively, because as soon as I meet you, I want to see who you know so that I can see what my next move is.
For me, if you have any tangible like body of work, whether it's like writing or if you're an artist and you have drawings, like you need to, that should be included in your portfolio. And even if you don't particularly like it, I feel like that's okay. Like I had a lot of stuff that I included that I wasn't particularly fond of, but it's all about being confident in your work. Because for the most part, they're not reading it word for word when you give them your portfolio. They're looking at it, they're seeing what you've done, but they're not going to read it word for word. So for me, it was just about being confident and giving them, also being diverse as well. You don't want to just have one thing. Like if you're an artist, you don't want to just draw houses the entire time. You have to mix it up and show. If you show your diversity, that helps a lot. I don't know. It just helps. I don't know why it does, but yeah. Yeah, it builds a case. It shows them that, number one, you probably are able to learn in more areas, because you're not. They could make the assumption that you're not specialized. So it's like, okay, this person is a jack of all trades because they can draw a house and a bird. So I would definitely say, make sure you have a correct portfolio, and there's a lot of resources here that will help you build that up, and you should definitely utilize them.
I think the thing that I've ran into a lot applying for jobs right after graduation was cover letters. And I know in class, and we've all heard about it, but most jobs, like when you're in college and high school, resume, they push it. Cover letters, some teachers, some professors touch on it. It's up to you to learn what a cover letter is. So I was really glad that I had went over that in one of my classes before, and I was like, okay, cover letters. So because I'm still applying to things, like I'm happy where I'm at, but I also have room for more. So like me still applying for stuff, I had to do a cover letter not too long ago, and I was just like, okay, check that up. The resume, let me check it. And I know everyone has a standard resume that you should have, like it's one page, it's easy to read, and it sums up you as a possible employee. But I also, depending on the job, sometimes I like to make sure I check and alter it, because some stuff isn't relevant to every job, especially when it comes to work experience. And me having diverse work experience, like ever since throughout my college years, I'm like, okay, well, take this out. I'm gonna put this in instead, because this will be more applicable to this job situation. So don't just have the blanket resume that you keep pushing in, because sometimes I was feeling like, maybe it's not, if you make changes, it kind of makes it visually appealing as well. So yeah, check your resume and learn cover letters. They're important.
Absolutely. We probably only have time for one more question. Does anyone out there have questions? I don't want to make... sweet.
Yay.
Any tips for video production?
For all of us.
All of us? Or
Well,
Well, anybody who has
the one
tips.
that, you said you was using Final Cut Pro and like, yeah, so.
As far as in class or in the, like, is that what you want to do as far as a career? Okay, so I don't do that as far as a career, but I would say, you know, if you are in a video production class, ask that professor about resources that he or she has. Look into internship opportunities. Just start Googling things and just see where it can take you. I would learn everything that you can while you're here. So if there's an opportunity for you to take video production 1, 2, if there's a 3 now, I don't know, I would take everything. So my tips would be to take everything that you can from your professors here because they're your resource and they're your tools, and then also to see if there's anything available, you know, in the job world before you enter the professional world. Did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Other audience questions before I do my last blanket question? Oh, Dr. Frobich, do you have a question?
So stress. How do you guys handle stress? Not only when you were students, but now as gainfully employed adults. What do you do? What advice would you have for them?
So as a student, stress, I mean, all students deal with stress, classes, personal life, financial, make sure you have a job, making sure you graduate because that is the main goal. So for me, that was like the only thing, because I'm like clearly a naturally optimistic, happy person. So other than that, the only thing that stressed me was classes and work and making sure I graduated. So once I did that, like, I could do anything. So I'm typically happy these days, and I thought it would wear off from May 11th, but it hasn't. And I'm just like, you know, I'm such a let's go with the flow thing type of person. So, you know, trusting life's process, that's me. So I don't really deal with, I mean, we all have stressful days. So, you know, for me, it's all about, you know, still looking at the bright side. I'm such a, it's hard. I might get 5 seconds and I'm like, oh man. And then, whoop, 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 we're back at it.
So I get really stressed out. I'm just going to be honest. I have worked some really stressful jobs since I've been out of school. My last position was very, very aggressive. It wasn't a communication-based job, and I was in revenue management. And the company that I was working for made $26 million a year, and I was in charge of managing the inventory for that company. So $26 million and one little Jasmine. So very difficult. Essentially, I would have to think about what were my triggers for stress. You know, if I get an email while I'm working on a really big project, while I'm in this software, should I just dismiss my email? You know, should I turn it off certain times during the day while I'm working on something so I don't distract myself and get stressed out? A lot of times what I would do at my last job was I would get away from my computer and I would walk outside. I would take like 2 15-minute walks a day. I know everybody can't do that on their job, but I had the flexibility to be able to do that. A lot of times I would try to channel my energy to something else or something that made me happy. So a lot of times I'll fantasize about my plans for the weekend and all the fun things I'm going to do on Saturday in order to move myself away. And now I would say you have to get an adequate amount of sleep too. I think that if you're stressed out and you're staying up all late at night trying to do work and you're not getting enough sleep, it sounds like the simplest thing, but 4 and 5 hours of sleep just really is not going to be sustainable in like the big world out here, at least not for me personally. So to handle stress now, instead of worrying about it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock. Like, I don't have any more energy for this today.
For me, I will say that I do have a very high stress job. Working at the Chamber and Events, we do, well, my department deals with over 100 events for the entire year that have to go on, and it's my job to pretty much oversee all of that. I've learned that I can't control everything. For me, I like putting my best foot forward in everything. Every event that has my name attached to it in any kind of way, I like it to be perfection. So I've had to learn that it's not going to be. There's always going to be something wrong, or it's something that I can't fix. So I just learned to let go of what I can't control and make time for myself. Because what happens some days, I'll forget to eat lunch. I'll get so caught up and so stressed on hitting my deadlines or things like that. I've made it a rule now that I do have to make time for myself. Whether, like I said, I take a chance to, or take time to step outside, take a deep breath, let it go, and refocus. Or maybe for me, maybe once a week or something, I'll go get my nails done, get my hair done, take myself to the movies or out to eat something, just something that, you know, helps recenter me and gets me back focused on what I'm doing and gets my mind off of work for a little bit. Even with school, I would highly suggest that because I know especially around midterm time, everybody's stressed out. Definitely make sure to take time to take care of yourselves because you only have one life and you definitely don't want to hurt this body because you're not getting another one.
All right, so we're running out of time, so I just want to give our panelists an opportunity, if they have any parting advice for students about to go on the job market, we would love to hear it.
Follow-up emails. You mentioned the cover letters, but follow-up emails I feel like is something that doesn't get brought up as often, but like when I applied to Methodist, probably like after I interviewed, maybe I would say like a day or two later, I sent them like a follow-up email and I just basically thanked them for taking the time out with me and then reiterated what I would do if I was hired there. And I don't know if it helped, but I know for a fact it definitely didn't hurt. So just taking the time out to do that and learning what that is, and again, resources here will help you with that, but that's a big thing for sure.
Not just emails, calls work too. Just so you, for those of you that don't write like I do, I really don't like to write. Yes, I'm very, especially if I go after a job that I apply for something I really want. I'm very good at stopping by. I'll call a few times just so they know that I'm interested. Not enough to be annoying, but enough to show them that I'm very interested in the job. Stopping by so they can put a face with the name, because sometimes that does help you stick out in the crowd. Because I'll tell you, there's been plenty of times that I've gotten jobs just for stepping in. Because on a piece of paper, I don't feel like I'm reflected properly, because writing is not my thing. But if you put me down, sit me down with somebody, I can talk my way into most jobs. I love sales, that's my thing. I love selling myself, selling anything that you put in front of me. So if writing is not for you, definitely try a different approach. Do not let anybody tell you you have to do it a certain way. There's not one way to find a job, to go about getting a job. And sometimes you will find that the job that you thought was for you isn't for you. Because I will tell you, I have, with the few degrees that I've gotten, I thought healthcare communications was it for me. I got my healthcare stuff, I got my communications, I was going to combine them, and it was going to be the best job ever. And then I started working at the chamber and events, and then I discovered sales. That's a whole nother world that I never knew existed. So it combines a little bit of everything that I've learned through my communication. So yes, like we were all talking about earlier, just because you have your heart maybe set on journalism or something, please try other things as well while you're in school and while you have the time to do it. Because sometimes when you get out, you're not going to have the time to be able to dibble and dabble on all these different things and get this experience.
So I would say to get some experience with interviewing skills, because I know a lot of times people will, or your professors will help you with resumes, they'll help you with cover letters, and then you'll get to the job interview and it's hard to talk about yourself. I don't have that issue. I love to interview. I used to do beauty pageants, so I'm confident that if I get into the room, I'm going to get the job because I know how to talk about me. But that's not everyone's strength. So I would say practice with a friend, practice with a professor, work with someone, because then when you get face-to-face with that employer, if you're just like, hi, I'm Jasmine and I graduated from Fayetteville State, there's going to be so many other people that are more interesting than you. So that's the biggest tip that I can give. And be an advocate for yourself. Like he was speaking about following up with people. Don't be afraid to send cold emails. I will send you an email. I will call you. Hey, did you get my email? I'm Jasmine. I'm graduating in May, and I'm so interested in your company. If you have 5 minutes to chat, do you have time this week? You know what I mean? If you're on the phone with someone, they can't see what you look like. They can't tell that you're nervous or afraid. And then if you get that interview, you never know what door that's going to open. If I had never stalked the man in Greensboro, basically, to get a one-on-one interview, I would have never gotten my first job, because you just never know where a conversation is going to lead you. And I could have been defeated when he told me that he didn't have a job for me, but asking him, well, do you know anyone, is what got me the next step. So just basically brush up on everything, resumes, cover letters, but that one-on-one, face-to-face communication, that can set you apart from a resume. Someone's resume could be excellent, but when they sit down with me and I talk about all the experience that I have and whatever, I could outweigh that other person.
So, yeah. Oh, and when you're interviewing, be careful how you answer some of those questions. When they ask you, what are your weaknesses?
Yeah.
Truly, truly think about your response. I have been in several interviews where I have, so like I said, we bring in interns to the chamber, and some of the responses to that question. Yeah. So don't say, like, going in there and say, oh, well, you know, I just have this thing where I can't come to work on time. But I'll work when I get there, because like I said, for the chamber, we work on deadlines, not necessarily a time. So if you tell me you can't get to work on time, how can I think or expect you to get, you know, something done by deadline? But just anything. So I can't think of some of the other things I've heard.
You should know, what are your strengths? I mean, you should have 3 that are already planned before you go in there. Weaknesses, those should be planned out, like she's saying. I would never say I'm unorganized.
Yes.
I would say, you know, my weakness is that if there's a ton of tasks, I pressure myself to get them all done in one day, and I won't leave until I get that done. So even though it seems like a weakness, it's actually a strength, because I'm showing that I want to get everything done. And I would turn the question around and make it seem as if, well, you know, since I'm so detail-oriented, I want to do everything in one day, but I have to realize that there's tomorrow, that I can work on some things. So my weakness is that I should plan out a week of tasks versus trying to stay until the job is done. I don't know. You should have strengths, you should have weaknesses. What are the things that you like doing? I mean, this is about you. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? You know, all of these things you should have already thought about before you go into the room, so that when the person asks you, it's a conversation versus, well, I think I want to be a reporter. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, so have like you said, you should pretty much know the answers to the questions. Most interviews are the same. They have blanket questions that they ask. So you should know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. Your weaknesses should be able, like you said, to be turned into strengths. So like she was just saying about her task, she just turned her weakness into ambition. That's what that employer heard. You should know a time where you were most helpful to a team. That is a question that most of them ask. When is a time that you've changed something in a company that they still do today? Those are, I'm being very realistic with you. These are questions that I ask when people come in to the chamber, because for us, everybody thinks we're a team of 30. We are a team of 6, and we get all 100 events done. So these are things that are very important to us, and any employer. They ask, what's another question? Yes, why do you want to work for the company? You should always do your homework. You should know at least 5 facts about that company at any time. 5. So if you all have pencils and papers, write that down. 5 facts. Google. I will tell you, going into the chamber, I knew nothing about Military Affairs Council, but I guarantee you I had 5 facts that I read offline. I did, and she was so impressed, and I mean, that's how I got the job. But that's what I'm saying. You need to know those things in order to get a job, especially in some of those bigger companies that I know a lot of students tend to go after. When they get out of college, they see the big companies, the big titles, the big names, and that's where they want to go. I would say definitely shoot for some of the small companies, because I've learned in some of the smaller companies, you learn so much more. I wanted to go to Cape Fear when I first got my degree in healthcare management, and because everybody goes to Cape Fear, Walmack, all the big hospitals. I ended up getting a dental facility. I was so discouraged because it was tiny. But I come to find out I learned so much more from that dental place than most people in my class learned in all of the Cape Fears and Walnut. So definitely keep your options open with that as well.
And also know who's interviewing you.
Yes.
To when I went into my interview at Methodist, I knew that the assistant AD was the women's basketball coach, and she retired with, I don't remember anymore because it's not as important, but she retired with like 399 wins. So when I went in there, I asked her, like, why didn't you get the 400? Like,
Yeah,
it
like-
stops at 399. And she laughed, and it's just certain things like that. Like, and then the AD is from Pittsburgh, and he was like a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And I mean, all that type of stuff helps. It just shows that either you're paying attention or you care enough to pay attention.
Yeah, absolutely. See, homework, you guys, homework.
This is all very excellent advice, and so I'm really happy that our panelists came today. So can we all thank them, please?